Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Rasslin Report. And here's your host, Rated R for Wrestling and Jonesy Chats Wrestling.
Welcome back to the Rasslin Report, episode 13. I'm joined again by my co-host, my partner in crime, Jonesy Chats Wrestling. What is going on, Jonesy?
I'm good, man. How are you? How are you today? You good?
Doing awesome today. Great day to be alive. A lot to go on in professional wrestling. I'll start it off by saying I do have a video dropping tomorrow, so be prepared for that one. All about Triple H, all about the new era in WWE. Nice little startup video. Trying some new stuff with the content. So if you guys see it when it drops, hopefully you do. Let me know what you think of the new stuff in the video and the new content I'm bringing to you guys. But that's dropping tomorrow. So with that out of the way, the Rasslin Report. What you think about this past week in professional wrestling, Jonesy?
I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really, really good week and all. I think there's a lot to talk about, and it's continuing the trend week on week now as we get towards this pay-per-view coming up. So much to talk about.
It's getting a lot more interesting, a lot more unpredictable, especially from the WWE front. You know, AEW's always been that way, so we're getting more of the unpredictability with AEW, with WWE, which is always a great sight to see, especially in recent memory when it comes to Monday Night Raw and how horrible it's been for God knows how long.
I agree. I think it's good. The fact that Triple H hasn't been at the wheel long, but he's steering the ship great, isn't it? And coming into this pay-per-view feels a lot more exciting for me than I thought it would be.
Yeah, and we had something super interesting happen on this past Monday Night Raw. Something that a lot of people didn't pick up actually, which is somebody was there creeping backstage in a doorway as Theory and Ziggler were going at it, being separated in a pull apart, and that's our first topic. Person in doorway on Monday Night Raw. All we saw was a hand with a glove on. The glove looked kind of purple from the picture I've seen, correct?
Yeah, correct. So, yeah, it carries on the trend of weird stuff going on Raw. Obviously, we've had the car crash. We've had the bin on fire. We've had loads of really weird stuff going on. But, yeah, really, really weird. I think it was really, really a nice touch. Not a lot of people picked up on it. And it kind of fits. For me, I was kind of hoping it would be a Bray Wyatt, but I'm going to say the obvious. It's going to be Dexter Lumis.
Well, I'm going to put the picture up right now, right? So everybody gets context what we're talking about. So there you see Bray Wyatt on the right. And on the left, you see the pull apart. And there's the glove in the doorway. It seems like it's holding the door open, correct?
Yeah, it's just kind of there. It's just almost like below the sign, if that makes sense. But an interesting note: the people that are in the picture is Dolph Ziggler and Austin Theory.
Yep.
Theory and Lumis. That's a combination there. But the fact that Lumis is creeping behind and creeping up. What's really going on? I thought this was a really nice play, and if it was Bray or something like that, I thought it would have been really well done. But I'm really hoping we're going to get a payoff with all this stuff that's going on backstage. I'm hoping this is just stuff that they're not doing with no explanation long term.
No, big time. Now, look at the glove. It looks purplish from this view, but it's probably maybe the picture that's making it look that way. The hole on the outside of the hand is kind of interesting. The whole black kind of sweater on his arm makes me think it's more Lumis than it is Bray Wyatt. Now, but I see people are saying that it could be rumors that it could be Lumis, Bray Wyatt as part of a new kind of faction, the Colts of Wyatt, stuff like that we've seen online. You have any credence into that? Do you believe any of that stuff?
No, I don't think so. I think this film with Bray, I think a lot of it's wishful thinking. Same with the poster of the Clash of Castle poster. There's a rumor going around that I did message you this week that the poster, if you look at the Eye of the Dragon, it looks like a similar eye to the Fiend, so to speak. But for me, these are all connotations. It would be a very good elaborate ploy by WWE if they're able to be doing this and Lumis isn't really behind. I think the $1 million question for me, I don't think Lumis is targeting AJ Styles. I think Lumis has definitely got something else. And the one I'd put it out there, I think he's going to be targeting probably Miz. Like Miz is in the segments as well. And just how does this play up to if the way do come back? I'm interested to see how that all plays up. But it's great television. I just want to pay off really for it. We don't need to pay off now, but when they do pay it off, he's got to be doing this for a reason. He's obviously causing these scenes of damage and all this lot. But there's got to be a reason. Is it because he was released maybe? And how does it fit? But I just hope we see more of these sort of connotations on TV because it's great to see. It means every background scene you're now looking at.
Yes, you are kind of doing a deep dive into everything. I'm gonna put up the picture now. What you're talking about, Clash of the Castle, the Dragon's Eye right behind Roman Reigns' head, similar to the Bray Wyatt's like contact lenses he would wear as the Fiend. So that's another little thing. Could we getting that's very like Easter egg stuff that we don't normally see in professional wrestling. It's more of like a a Marvel movie thing where you're searching for Easter eggs and stuff like that. That would be awesome, and a nice little payoff for individuals who kind of deep dive and really go into the details of things. Other people might be like, oh, I didn't even notice that. That's cool. But there's some individuals out there that are like yourself, Jonesy, that are looking into these things and looking at these things in a different perspective and searching for these little hints, Easter eggs, stuff like that. It's a great way to foreshadow things, but keep it so secretive and so kind of like and kind of
the big payoff.
And the blinders, and you have blinders in certain points. You're not noticing the stuff on the side, these little detail stuff. It could be good stuff later on when you pay it off.
I think it could be. I think my only slight concern was where we had the car crash on week 1 and the other stuff. It wasn't even mentioned this week, which is a bit. There's no follow up. There's no real consequence of that. But I trust in WWE. I think they're going to do something. But this Loomis thing, very, very interesting. And I'm interested what the payoff is and where it fits. I think they could go in a lot of different directions, but it's definitely something gripping. And if they do more stuff like this, I'm a massive fan, in all honesty.
Yeah, I definitely am as well. Quick to the chat. My cousin Eric, no need to fear. He is here. Thank you, Eric, for joining us on time this time for the first time ever, I think. Eric's been on time. But let's get to the next topic. All right, so we got the person in the doorway. There's speculation. Is it Loomis? Is it Wyatt? Most likely, it's probably Loomis. And we'll see what his intentions are going forward from week to week. Next thing, female Druid on SmackDown. What you got for us, Jonesy, on this person?
Yeah, so this was obviously in the Viking Raiders vignette. They did a fantastic vignette on SmackDown. Looked really, really good. Looked a bit like a modern-day version of a Papa Shango. You had that sort of vibe, 92 vibe. I thought it was really good. In terms of the Druid, yeah, it's Sarah Logan. So it's great to see her back. Obviously, she was back at the Royal Rumble this year. And I'm interested to see if she's going to be there as a full-time character with them. I think they should be doing that, really. I think they're really trying to rebuild the Viking Raiders now. Besides changing their name back to the War Raiders, I think this looks a really good rebirth of them so far. I'm really impressed to see where they go. And yeah, I think if this leads to a match at the Clash of the Castle against the New Day, I'll be a fan of them going over. So I really hope they do that, to be honest.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's one of those teams that has like kind of it's super gimmicky, the team, obviously, but they were good in NXT. Is that when they came up, they were, it's that typical main roster WWE trope where like they go heavy into the gimmick and it gets kind of campy after a while. We saw it with Drew McIntyre with the whole Scottish heritage and going into stories and his promos and all this stuff. It got corny after a while. Same thing with Viking Raiders. They got up there. They delved too much into the Viking stuff. We had that terrible stuff leading up to that WrestleMania. Was it WrestleMania 30? I forget which one. The one that was supposed to be in Tampa with the COVID stop that was in the Performance Center. That one, the stuff they did with the Street Profits and that whole pre-tape stuff, it was not well done. It came off pretty campy. So the rebrand of this team makes sense. Sarah Logan, if she's the female Druid, because she's obviously married to Eric of the Viking Raiders, correct? They have a child together, so that's great to see her back in the fold. Last time we saw her, obviously, was in the Rumble. Before that was in the Riot Squad. So it's great to see. They need more tag teams. And the biggest regret I think WWE has to this date right now is the release of FTR. I think that's something probably Triple H probably is stuck in his craw, and he cannot stand the fact that they let him go. They let that team go because they're in dire need of tag team. That's the best tag team on the planet. And they're going to get the Viking Raiders here, and hopefully in a rebrand in a more serious tone. I think they need more violence from this team because they are so gimmicky. It can be kind of corny. They got to go more of the violent route with the squad.
I think we just got to see them going on a run where they're unstoppable, basically beating people, destroying the New Day, stuff like that. I think for me, they can get that rub. If they beat the New Day at the pay-per-view, they can get that rub. But it was a really, really good cameo. I just hope it bears relevance to when they're out in the ring. We see this sort of carrying on as such. But give it to WWE. The promo also and the vignette for Karrion Kross was on point again this week. That was another one. These vignettes backstage and even the promos are looking really, really good since Triple H come in. Has to be said.
The more video packages we get, I think the better it is for everybody involved because it adds a whole other layer to the character because you have the production value behind it, and it gives it more of a feel for the character, more of a stage for the character to be presented in a certain way. If that character is kind of out of the ordinary, like a Karrion Kross, like a Viking Raiders, it works really well with these guys.
Yeah, I agree with you, mate. 100%.
Zach is in the chat. It's interesting because the West Coast Podcast had a stream last night, live streaming during Rampage. We were going on and on about Zach Clayton. He got jobbed out to Hook, and then Slim J, which is part of the Trust Busters, the tag team called Slim Z, is what Eric came up with. Zach Clayton teaming up with Slim J eventually, probably to kind of run rampant over the whole territory. But there you go. That's the inside joke there. Zach Clayton, next big thing. I'm gonna say it right now. He could be a future AEW World Champion.
Yeah, the amount of egos in AEW running wild at the moment. Tony Khan's got so many problems. Adding Zach Clayton to him, it could be the camel that broke the back, if that makes sense. I think it'd be a struggle, but yeah, it's great for them to see they get that rub, but I don't know what they're doing. I want to say it doesn't really do anything for me.
Yeah, Rampage is like the secondary show, but it feels like the fifth in line in terms of just television wrestling on television. I'd rather watch so many other things than Rampage at this point. The only reason I'll watch Rampage is to follow along with West Coast Popcast as they live stream it. Really, the only reason I'll watch Rampage for the most part. WrestleMania UK, my guy Mex is in the chat. What is up, Mex? Thank you for joining us. Do you think they should split the tag titles, not have undisputed champs in the tag division? I'm not a fan of the whole undisputed champ thing in general. I think if you do what AEW has done with the interim title, then it makes sense to do an undisputed match between the two champions. But two belts being split across two brands, then combining them for one guy to hold two belts, I think it's a detriment to the whole division and the whole all shows in total. I think they should split the tag teams, but get rid of one of the titles in terms of splitting it. You separated the undisputed tag and you just make a world tag team title that goes from brand to brand. And because you don't have the depth in tag team or the depth in tag teams that are built to even compete on with the likes of the Usos, even with the likes of the New Day. So I don't think it makes sense to have both titles. I think you just separate them by just, axing one of them out and then just do it like that and have both brands have multiple tag teams. The only way you're going to build the division.
I agree. I think the thing with it is, as you said, the lack of depth is the killer. But I'd be a fan at this point, even if they brought up tag teams from NXT, just have one championship, and then you can have they go to NXT, they can defend it all over, and then you've got a much bigger pool of wrestlers. But yeah, I think the Usos with the tag team titles, for me, I'm not really a fan of it. I've got to that point now where I'm kind of done. But yeah, let's see what they do with it. I'm sure that'll be another focus of Triple H. She's done a really great job of rebuilding the Intercontinental title division. I'm sure that same focus on the tag team division is probably going to come soon as well.
Yeah, and it'll be a godsend if it does, because again, it's like a war of attrition at this point because you have two brands, don't have enough tag teams, so you're going to create a bunch of random tag teams, and the depth just isn't there. And especially when you split it in half, but the two brands, the depth is even less. The pool of depth is even less at that point. So it's not a good look.
Let's be honest though, we've been spoilt. Like we've had eras where we've had Demolition Legion, Doom, Heart Foundation. Dudley Boys, Hardy Boys, Edge of Christian, I can go on. We've had all these spells, New Age Outlaws, where we've had fantastic tag teams. It could get back to that one day. You just got to hope you hit it right, though, really. But they've got to start somewhere, really.
Yeah, I mean we've seen that for so long. We got John Morrison, Eminem, Morrison and Miz, so many legitimate tag teams that really felt like okay, they can win tag team titles, they can win tag team titles. They all felt like the title could swap hands at any point in any match. Now it really doesn't. The Usos are running the show. They don't have as much interest in terms of storyline or presentation as Roman Reigns, so their title run for me hasn't been as great as Roman Reigns in terms of presentation and all that like that. They feel like secondary, which is what they are.
Yeah, I think the thing is they fit the Roman package, but they are at that level where they don't have anybody that can get near them. But then this is hopefully something that will change. I don't know when it will be, though. Fortunately, I hope it will be soon. I was hoping we'd get somebody at this pay-per-view coming up that would equal them out, so to speak. But we'll see. They can only do what they can do, but it's about time they put someone else over, I think, really.
It is, and it feels like all these other tag teams are just canceling each other out because none of them are really that great if they're just canceling each other out as they go against each other to see who faces the Usos. Because your chance was to drop the titles to the Street Profits, but you didn't because that's the only team that really had any momentum, and you didn't do it. And I don't know if they're going to split the Street Profits, but you're not really in a favorable position to start splitting teams up.
I think the trouble with the Street Profits is there was all this meandering of pushing Montez Ford as a single star at the back of their mind. This teasing a heel turn. There's no follow up. It's a mess, but we'll see. Let's see what they do. Yeah.
Well, that's the problem when you have a team where there's a clear-cut there's a single star in the team. That's the problem when you have a team like that. There's a clear-cut single star in that team that eventually it's only that itch is going to come from creative. So let's split them up because I think we got money in this one guy instead of having them two. I think we could make more money off the one rather than two. So that's the issue you run into.
Yeah, the last one to say it. The only other team I think now that's ready that could be put together at a moment's notice would be Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn.
Yes.
The problem is with Kevin Owens, he's so good. He could possibly be the next world champion. He could be the next United States champion. You know what I mean? He's one person in loads of different divisions. But that's the only team I think really if they would put together last minute that I think could come in now and be credible to beat the Usos instantly. Really.
Well, I think that's a great storyline on top of the fact that you could have so much fun with those two as a tag team. The amount of craziness they can get into as a tag team. You could even have them winning the tag team titles and Kevin Owens vying for the championship at the same time while holding those titles. I mean, because the team, it writes itself, basically, those two guys together. The amount of fun you can actually have with those two guys and the amount of entertaining TV, I think it's like, endless possibility.
I agree, mate.
Noob & Co. Good afternoon, guys. Good afternoon, Noob & Co. Thank you for joining us, man. It's a mainstay on the stream in the chat. Noob & Co. is always with us. Thank you appreciate you for joining us again. Next topic we're going over is Brandy Rose in training again to maybe make an in-ring return in WWE. She's been at the Performance Center, correct?
Yeah, so she was at the Performance Center. They did some sort of dark show where she's testing in ring, and this was for NXT. So interesting to see her back there. I'm interested to see how she fits. So clearly coming back to the ring, is she going to be with Cody, or are they going to have her sort of out on her own? I think this will play into potentially a feud with Seth Rollins and maybe some sort of diva. I'm not going to say Becky Lynch because she's gone babyface. Perhaps they'll put Seth Rollins with someone else potentially in a tag match at some point to drag that feud out when Cody does come back.
It's totally possible. Now, Brandy Rhodes, it's not much to write home about when we've seen her in the ring previously in AEW. So they really took her out of the ring as time went on. When she had that whole faction in the beginning of the early stages of AEW, where she had individuals joining. I think Karma was one of them. Or what was her name? In Impact,
Awesome
Kong. She had her join. I think Dr. Luther was part of that group too, and it was a very, very odd group that they kind of just scrapped in the beginning stages of it. And then Brandy Rose, like in ring stuff, just really died off after that. So she became like what I guess you call a brand ambassador or whatever the hell you would call it. Like she was in charge of the female talent, so she'll come here. She'll work on her chops in NXT. Maybe down the road she could eventually be a mainstay in the women's division.
The only other thing I think they may do is if she's going to be with Cody as a manager and a valet, maybe they do that risk. She's taking her bumps now in case they do want to do the unthinkable.
Yes,
and they do Seth actually hit her, for example. I'm not saying that you could get that accidental hit or whatever.
Yeah.
And that will further get even more heat for that match.
We've seen that happen with Stephanie and Triple H before. So, yeah, definitely go down that same road. Stephanie and Triple H are always down for that. So I could see Triple H's head of creative being like, yeah, let's get him physical. The inadvertent hit knocks her off the apron or something like that. Or maybe she takes a super kick as, Cody jumps out of the way. Stuff like that. It's a dastardly road you can take when it goes down to
and it gets that heat up, doesn't it? Even more so than Seth injuring him, so to speak.
You remember seeing the feud between Triple H and Randy Orton leading up to that WrestleMania match? I think it was WrestleMania 22 or something like that. They had him get physical with Stephanie McMahon. So, they had that stuff go down. So we could see stuff like that. That's good television, honestly. It's good, compelling television. Eric is down with the KO Zayn Tag Team Champions. It writes itself. If they ever were to team up, they have so much history. They're always kind of like in this endless loop where in the end they meet up with each other. And, we could see it go down in the tag team form.
I agree. We can tell with Sami Zayn, though, he is literally the lackey at the moment.
Yes.
The babyface Rob he got last night at home, he was in his home territory and stuff like that. For me, the payoff eventually, he's going to have to cost somebody the belt. And I don't think he'll do it to Roman. Although he's great, I don't think he's that level. The tag team title was the one that I think he will cost, as we said last week.
Yeah, and then on top of that, the timing of it's interesting because if it wasn't so close to Clash at the Castle, he may have won in his hometown to get that shot against Gunther. Yeah, because it's just because it's in the UK.
We said that last week, though, didn't we? We did call this
was going to be Gunther. Yeah,
we said exactly. It's just sort of obvious. I think it made sense, but I've got to give it to them that's that division in the Continental title division and having that type of match instead of a contenders match. Fantastic work, WWE. Really, really good.
Yeah, because it showcases really guys like, Ricochet being in that spot, kind of builds them at least a little bit. And then Madcap Moss, when are they going to change it to Riddick Moss? But yeah, he gets in that spot as well. This is, it's interesting. It's individuals that get in there and then it helps them on the road to being built back up as, credible.
I agree with you.
Next topic we're going over, the women's tag tourney. This is an interesting one. So we had a different team show up on SmackDown to take on the team of Sonya Deville and Natalya. It was supposed to be Zoe Stark and Nikita Lyons from NXT that ended up being Toxic Attraction.
Yeah, I thought it was a really, really sensible move. This is probably what they should have done first of all. I think credit to Triple H, he moved quickly. This team have been ready to come up to the main roster.
It makes more sense. Yeah, it makes more sense than the other team.
And when we kind of look at the brackets, really, for me, we've got a money match this coming week on Monday, where we've got the Io Sky, Dakota Kai match against Bliss and Oscar. For me, I think that's got to be a no contest unless the Hills win and get that cheap momentum. I'm interested to see the only other team I think that can go all the way and win it. I would have said Raquel Gonzalez and Elias solely on the fact of Raquel Gonzalez alone. But for me, it wouldn't surprise me if this team from NXT go all the way. And if it isn't Io Sky and Dakota Kai that are the winners, I could see this team going on and winning it and actually being the next tag team champions. I don't know how Sasha and Naomi fit, but I think for me, it's great to see it. I think this has looked really, really good so far as tag team tournament.
Yeah, it's leaning into the credibility of the titles, like giving them some type of credibility because they were so pointless after they were first won by Sasha and Bailey, all those years ago. So they haven't really gotten anything out of them. And Toxic Attraction did make the NXT Women's Tag Team titles feel a little bit more credible as well because they were in the faction of Toxic Attraction with Mandy Rose as the NXT champion. So it helped. It gave it kind of like a bounce off effect off to the NXT Women's Championship to the tag team titles. So maybe Toxic Attraction, they may go down that road again and try to get Toxic Attraction and win the main title, tag titles for the women, and it could help them out in the end too, and lean some credibility to these titles that have been absolutely useless for the past 2 years.
Yeah, I think I'd say, to be fair, they've not been the best. My only concern is if they do go for a double count out, a double DQ or anything, that means we've got no finalists. Maybe that's where we get the mystery team come back, and that is a Sasha and Naomi at that point. But for me, I'm interested in what they do here. Obviously, if the Hills do win this, it could be all belts on the line at the pay-per-view in Cardiff. So that'll be good to see. But very surprised we get this match already. For me, this is a hot feud. The fact they're putting this on Monday Night Raw seems like a huge match for me, in all honesty.
It does, yeah.
Unless it's going to build more heat, really.
Yeah, it's like either you do the schmozzy no contest or the heels do something really dastardly to get the win over, and then I guess you kind of get the comeuppance at the pay-per-view in the six-person tag.
Yeah, hopefully. As I said last week, I think if the Heels don't get the job done at the pay-per-view and they lose quite obviously, I think it's not good for the stable. This Heel stable needs to win. And I'd love to see sort of Bailey go over. I think Bailey and Bianca, for me, is a match at Extreme Rules they have to do, really.
And this is an interesting comment here from Noob & Co. He says, believes that Trish Stratus will cost Kai and Io the match on Monday.
Yeah, so Trish Stratus obviously is there. For me, maybe I think she's just there for a one-off. Maybe if they were sensible, they would have her sort of get involved in the whole Rhea Ripley thing that's going on at the moment, because Rhea at the moment hasn't got anything really going on besides taking Dominic's soul, so to speak, which is just ridiculous. That's what I would bring her in, but let's see what she does. Maybe she does get involved, but then what's the long-term payoff of that, really? Unless it's a great moment, really.
Yeah, there's a problem with you have like a faction that has one female in it. Is like there's not much for her to do because they're not gonna do the physicality between.
There might be men versus women. Maybe they are gonna go to that.
Maybe we get Dominic versus Rhea in a match like sooner rather than later, and then we go from there. But it's you kind of book yourself into a corner because like unless you put her in a mainstay women's title picture, she doesn't have much to do.
The way she's been treated, though, in this sort of building a Judgment Day, it is like she's in there with the men. She's looking quite dominant so far.
Yes.
Unless there's a payoff with this, she must be having men versus women. That's the only thing I can think of, in all honesty.
I mean, she is, large. She's a big woman. So I mean, if in terms of stature, she matches up with a lot of dudes.
I get the impression they're trying to make her a 2022 version of China. That's the route they're going down. So she's going to be in there with the men. She'll look dominant and stuff like that. But it's great to see her on there. But for me, she's another one that could be challenging for the women's title easily.
Easily.
She could easily be on SmackDown facing Liv Morgan instead of Shayna Baszler.
I mean, and we've seen this with Nia Jax going into the Royal Rumble. Beth Phoenix being in the Royal Rumble on the men's side, so they could do the same thing. Maybe this Royal Rumble, Rhea Ripley gets in there and eliminates somebody. Eric says Brandy Rose wrestling skills down thumb, Brandy Rose and less clothes up thumb. The way you make it work. If you want to see her in less clothes, just go on her Instagram. I mean, it's that easy. West Coast Popcast feels like Toxic Attraction got called up. No Mandy in their promo package. Faction breakup soon. I think. Yeah, I mean, probably because they're probably not going to bring up Mandy Rose because she's NXT champion unless she's going to lose it and then get called up back up to the main roster. I don't think it's a good move. I think the three of them have a really good chemistry, and the package in total, I think, works well.
I agree. I think it'd be a shame to sort of call her up. She's done some great work in NXT. She comes up to the main roster. She may get lost in the shuffle, unfortunately.
Yeah, they just have Toxic Attraction do double shots. They do NXT and they still do, and they come up in the main roster for the tournament. If you're gonna have them win, then the faction's it's a breakup faction right there. You break it up. But if you're not gonna have them win, I think you have them showcase themselves in the main roster and then go back to NXT. Maybe do a couple shots when they come up to the main roster, have tag team matches here and there. Maybe do that unless you're ready to bring all three of them up at one time. Because I think that the faction works really, really well, and I think they could do big things on the main roster with them.
I agree. I think that's a great point you make.
Noob & Co. Beth Phoenix might be feuding with Rhea Ripley. Interesting.
That's a good suggestion. It makes sense. Obviously, you're going to have to get somebody to call out Rhea Ripley unless she's in there with the men, as we said. So, obviously, we believe at this pay-per-view, it's gone from an Edge versus Finn Balor match now to maybe a tag team match. So, you're going to probably get Rey Mysterio and Edge against Finn and Damian. Rhea's obviously on the outside.
Yep. This
is where we believe Dominic will probably do the heel turn. It's been going on for months and months now. I think this will be a good match. I'm a bit gutted it's not Ray. I'm a bit gutted it's not Edge versus Balor alone. But it's great to see Priest get that rub on a pay-per-view. I'm a massive fan of Damian Priest. I think he's been underutilized since WrestleMania, in all honesty.
Yeah, definitely been underutilized since then. Since the whole Bad Bunny stuff, he's been really underutilized. And yeah, I think, could we get that? Yeah, because it eventually has to happen where you have to have somebody.
There's got to be a payoff to this.
Yeah, because Rhea's just there beating up on Dominic. Obviously, none of the guys are going to put hands on her. So it's like, what do you do? So Beth Phoenix just makes logical sense because Edge is in the thing, in the feud, to bring her in to kind of even the odds a little bit.
I think for me, with Judgment Day, we need a new member. We need something. They've gone a bit downhill since Edge left the group and Finn came in. Besides that first week on Raw, they're Finn a bit flat. For me, they either need to get a big win here at the pay-per-view or they need somebody else to join. Dominic isn't the one I choose to join, by honestly. I'd much rather they go and get T-Bar because I think he'll be far better. But it's just how they do it. I think if Dominic joins, I don't really think that improves them anymore. I think it weakens them.
Yeah, I think it does. And I think, ever since they did that weird Edge thing where they kicked him out and Finn joined the crew, I think that was kind of like, they kind of fell off a cliff. Their Judgment Day had some promise, and then they kind of just fell off. I think they should have went longer with Edge as the main guy in that group. To turn him back babyface so abruptly, I don't think was a good call. But funny thing, you have in the comments, you have Noob and Co bringing up Trish Stratus, and our next topic is Trish back at Raw.
Yeah, we were just going to say a lot. I think with Trish, a lot of it is obviously she's back on Raw this week. It's great to see her back there. Obviously, it's in Canada. Not too sure if this is a long stay or she's just there for the moment. I'd love it if she ended up in some sort of angle that gets on pay-per-view in a few weeks. I think that'd be good to see, but not too sure what she'll do. I just hope she gives a rub to somebody. It's all great seeing these legends back, but they should really be there to put over the new talent, I think.
They definitely should. You get the dream matches, but in the end, it's like, what do you do after that?
Agreed. The thing is, like, they've obviously had a fantastic career. They've got this overness. They come back for a cameo. But this is the point to give a rub to somebody, I think.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so Trish back to Raw. Next topic, KO versus Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, let's just talk about it. So what a fantastic promo on Raw. One of the best promos of the year by both of them.
Yep.
Absolutely fantastic. The rebooking of Kevin Owens the last 2 weeks has been absolutely phenomenal. Drew's promos have been superb. It was great last night on SmackDown. Very good on Raw. And this match they had, what a match. Absolutely superb. They got a load of time. For me, I'm feeling huge. I think credit to WWE. This was really well put out. The fact that nobody got pinned either. I thought it was so well done. And I was just so impressed. I think the writing, the promo and stuff like this. And I'd like to see these two have a feud again somewhere down the line because I think this could be a big, big money match if they're given time with a title at stake.
Yes, the title at stake, I think, amplifies this only even more because they're there's a big contrast between the two in terms of how they look and how they wrestle. So I think it's a good mesh of looks and in-ring skill. And if you add the title on top of the promos, I think you'll get a ton out of this. Now it's just how do you get to that point after Clash of the Castle? That's the whole thing. Again, they seemingly book themselves into these weird little corners, and then you're kind of just wondering how the hell they're going to get out of it and get to the next thing.
They are in a bit of a mess. Like, you've obviously got the Karrion Kross Drew thing going on. Yep. You got KO giving his message, Roman giving his message to KO and vice versa. I'm not too sure really where this is going to go. I believe it would be Drew and Karrion Kross next, the next pay-per-view. But for me, this is the point where, as I said last week, where we need Kevin Owens. Really, he deserves a belt. So I want him to face Bobby Lashley, and I want him to get a belt. For me, the United States title will be a great placeholder for him until he then goes and does the world title. But for me, Roman and Kevin Owens down the line will be fine. All I would ask is Kevin Owens needs some sort of winning retort before that, because obviously Kevin Owens got absolutely handed to by Roman Reigns previously in the last feud.
Well, I mean, the last feud, I'll give it credit that it was one of the only feuds I remember in this, going on 2.5 year long reign by Roman Reigns as champion, as really the only one I really felt at that time that he might lose that Royal Rumble match they had where they fought all over the arena. Felt like a match.
Is that the handcuff one?
Yes,
couldn't get the handcuffs.
Yeah, where they had that miscue with the handcuffs. He had to cut the camera cut and everything like that. So, but it felt like he had a shot and it felt legit. We lost Jonesy there, but it felt legit that he could win that title at that point in time. Welcome back, Jonesy. So it felt legit that he could win that title in that point in time. So he was one of the only feuds that Roman has had where it felt like, he felt legitimate that he could win. There's only been maybe one or two. So that was a good, change of pace there.
I agree. I think the new Kevin Owens is looking really, really good. And yeah, let's see what this plays off. I thought it was really clever from WWE, though, to have that whole Roman give you a message to Kevin. They're thinking about storylines now. They're not ripping up a script half hour before. That shows they've got to put some real thought in it. But let's see where Kevin Owens goes. I hope he gets a match at the pay-per-view. Like, I really want to see him. I'm obviously going to be at the pay-per-view, so I really hope he gets a match.
Yeah, it'll be cool to see. Now, Tino Time in the chat. What's up, guys? What's up, Tino? Thank you for joining us. Make sure you check out Tino's Time channel on YouTube. Make sure you check out what he's got going on over there and the live streams he does for all the wrestling shows. You know, Raw, Dynamite, SmackDown, all that stuff. Thank you for joining us, Tino. Appreciate it, man. Eric says, rumor has, I think he's Legado. Rumor has Legado supposed to have a program with Ray. Maybe Dominic will join him.
Maybe, like, obviously Santos is coming up to the main roster, we believe,
Yep.
based on NXT Heatwave the other night. That could make sense, like, for a Latin feud, but yeah, I'm not too sure. They got to get this Judgment Day versus Rayfin done, and the payoff done to that. I don't know. I think the baby faces are winning, unfortunately, which doesn't. I'm not a fan of.
It doesn't help Judgment Day whatsoever. Now, the only thing is that hopefully it doesn't turn into like Ray Dominic versus Seth, that long feud that seemed like it lasted like 2 years. Yeah, the whole eye thing, that thing lasted forever. Hopefully they're kind of getting to the end of this Ray Dominic versus Judgment Day, because that other one with Seth lasted a long ass time.
Yeah, the thing is, it's like, where'd you go? Obviously, if we're going to do Ray versus Dominic as a feud, Dominic will obviously taunt Ray with his mask and this other stuff. But for me, I don't know, that this Judgment Day versus Ray thing seems to be going on for weeks and weeks. And this past week on Monday night on Raw, for example, like, Ray's getting beat down 3-on-1 basically.
Yep.
And there's no retort. Like, you know, you've got Edge isn't there and stuff like that. And it's just a numbers game, really. I'm not really too sure where we go. This just seems to be going on, really.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the next thing, something small we're going to cover really quickly. It's something that I enjoy because I think this is the only pay-per-view where the two brands going against each other or being two separate brands really, it's the only time it ever really matters or ever really kind of is entertaining. So we got Survivor Series, got a new logo, right? Nice little cool logo for Survivor Series, this upcoming Survivor Series this year. So I like the logo, the red against the blue. So they're going to keep in the same vein where they have been the past few years, where it's champion versus champion, each brand versus each brand. None of it really means anything afterwards, right? They always try to make it seem like it does, but they never capitalize on it. Maybe Triple H may treat it differently, but I've enjoyed the last few years of Survivor Series matchups because we got, you know, especially the world title. It's always been like Brock versus AJ, Brock versus Daniel Bryan, a lot of cool stuff. Drew versus Roman, that was a really good match. The build-ups have always been good for these champion versus champion Survivor Series matches. So do we see the same going on this year?
I hope so. Like, I love the logo. It's really, really sort of proper, if that makes sense.
Yep. I'll put it back
what I think we need to do to elevate the actual feud as such, I think we need to have two different GMs. We've obviously got Adam Pearce.
Yes.
We need somebody else on another brand to be a GM, and that would really add to that. And it's just where you go with this. But in terms of who will face who, will there be two belts at this point, or will there be one? That's the question. I think for me, we need two different champions. Like that's the route I would go down.
If you're going to keep the brand split.
Yeah, you definitely need two different champions, because Roman can't face himself, obviously. But we'll see. I think it's exciting, but there's some potential great dream matches we could see. Like we could see Gunther versus Bobby Lashley, for example. Yes. That would be incredible. I would say the Usos, but I don't even know who. There's no other tag team because there's one belt.
That's the problem. You have to separate these titles unless they're going to face themselves. And November is not that far away.
I think it's maybe that hopefully this year there'll be a decent storyline and there's more at stake for the losing team. Like, obviously, back in the old days with Survivor Series, you used to have like these sort of multi-man matches where people teamed. At the end, the survivors would have one last match and the winner would get a title shot. It's a bit like a lethal lottery type thing. I'd like to see them do that as something different, maybe, if there's real thought behind it.
Well, the concept
involve NXT as well, to be fair.
Yes, exactly. The concept behind the original Survivor Series was very, very creative, right? You had the matches, heels versus baby faces. They each had their own, like, whatever team name, like a random team name they come up with. And then the last survivor goes into the last match, and it would be like, it's good stuff. I mean, honestly, it's a good way to kind of have a pay-per-view that feels like a big change of pace. Another way to elevate individuals. It's another avenue to elevate somebody. That last survivor, he elevates into a title picture, stuff like that. I even enjoyed the first, 2016, the first Survivor Series, where they had the brand split at this iteration, where that was a 5-star match according to Dave Meltzer. That SmackDown versus Raw 8-man, whatever, it was like an 8-man or 10-man elimination tag Survivor Series traditional style. That was an awesome match. I mean, they can go back to doing stuff like that as well, and not having it's a focus between champion versus champion.
I think this year, like, be brave, have people like Braun Breaker as in the world title match if he's your world champion for NXT, have somebody else, have the world champion of Raw, have the world champion of SmackDown if the belts are split at that point. But it's really exciting. The fact they fought the logo, it has to mean something. And I think I've got good confidence in Triple H. This year's Survivor Series is going to be epic.
Yeah, so do I. Eric goes on to say Roman versus himself at Survivor Series probably be the best match in years. I mean, they always say that there's certain guys that can wrestle a broomstick, and then it'll be an awesome match. So I mean,
I agree. The winner's pretty obvious, but the winner will be what we've seen for the past 2 years. Every time that person's had a match. To be fair,
so it's kind of run of the mill. It's kind of par for the course at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
But next topic, and to me, I mean, maybe I'm biased, but I think it's the best topic we go over every week. Retro topic of the week. And this week's retro topic is, if there was no steroid scandal in the WWE in 1992, 1993, and Vince didn't have the FBI breathing down his neck, would HBK and Brett still have been big stars in WWE? Now, this is kind of like one of those things people say, yeah, of course they was Brett and Shawn. But remember, these guys were small guys, and Vince never liked small guys. He only reverted course because they looked less like they were on steroids than guys like Ultimate Warrior, guys like Rick Rude, guys like Macho Man, guys like Hulk Hogan. So he reverted course here to make guys elevate guys and feature guys that were smaller looking. So the steroid stigma, even though they were still taking, Brett's come out and said he's taken them before, the steroid stigma will kind of just be kind of like not so front and center, because these individuals were smaller than what we've seen previously. So, Jonesy, in your opinion, would Brett, HBK still have been megastars in that time period if it wasn't for the steroid issue?
I think they would have got there in the end. I don't think they would have got there as soon as they did. Let's look at it like SummerSlam 91, for example. You've got Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior against Sergeant Slaughter, General Adnan, them type of people that roided off. They were generally roided. And the bigger, Vince McMahon very much was the larger than life stars. They were trying to compete with Hollywood movies and stuff like that. Would have they got out of the Intercontinental division, though? That's the thing for me. These guys were fantastic talents. And that ability may have shone, but I don't know how soon. That's the trouble. Like, it's a really, really good question, to be fair, if they would have got out of it. I think for me, they would still be stars, but they wouldn't have come to the forefront as quick. It may have taken them a lot longer to get to that point, even to get to a world title, to be fair.
Yeah, I don't think we would have gotten the Iron Man match when we did. I think unless it would have been a case of individuals just straight leaving for WCW, that they had no choice but to push these guys, I don't think he was happy about doing it. I thought, now again, the years, we're talking about 93, 94, 95, 96. These years were lean for WWE. These were tough years where they were running the gambit, kind of maybe teetering on the precipice of maybe closing shop, because the numbers were very lean during this time period. Business was not good. And I think that played a part in the beginning of, him changing. Obviously, he changed it for two reasons. For one main reason, because of the steroid stuff, but he also probably had a lot of trepidation going into this change, because he himself knew that these guys weren't going to sell tickets, because they didn't look like superheroes. They didn't look like what people were used to seeing professional wrestlers in the average day person's eyes, were massive, humongous individuals.
I think what really changed his opinion on both these two guys was the Survivor Series match they had for the Intercontinental title. That was absolutely superb. You then obviously had the ladder match, Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon, Scott Hall. I think that really opened doors. But for me, it just shows, like, obviously Vince would have seen how over Ric Flair was. Ric Flair wasn't a big guy. He wasn't really a jack guy, and so to speak. I'd say maybe that would open his eyes. Obviously, Ric Flair did have the profile of a Roman Reigns of that level. He was that over, but maybe that would have made him try something different. But yeah, it would have been very, very testing to see how soon Vince would have realized how good these two guys were that were under him, to be fair.
Now, Eric has an interesting comment here. He says, no, they would have stayed fighting over the IC title, giving people the best match every single night. Vince would have made Crush the champ. It's possible because he has that, that size, because Vince always been a body guy, size guy. If you're big, you're strong, you look great. That's all he really cared about. And a lot of times it's worked, right? A lot of times that whole golden era of WWE was that worked. That formula worked. And it's not to say that Stone Cold Steve Austin was a bad wrestler, because he had limitations after the injury, but he wasn't doing much during that big run in terms of in-ring stuff. It wasn't doing a ton of moves and the athleticism and stuff like that. But it's interesting. I think, I go with Eric. They probably would have stayed fighting in the IC title picture for longer, and maybe one of them could have cracked that top. Probably, to me, it would have been HBK because of the
he's better on the mic.
Better on the mic, and the appeal to the female audience and the gimmick and stuff like that. I think that would have elevated him more than Brett, because Brett was just a no nonsense wrestler. Boom, technical. That's his whole gimmick. HBK was a little bit more he had more range with it. Even though I'm a bigger Brett guy than an HBK guy.
I think the last thing to say on the Crush comment, you say would Crush be world champion? He didn't make Big Boss Man world champion, and Big Boss Man's probably bigger than Crush. I don't know if he's more muscular than Crush, but he was a big guy as well, to be fair. And didn't get that world title rub. But the Crush thing, that's kind of a scary thought. I know they tried crushing Demolition, and that was a disaster.
Yeah, but so when it comes to Big Boss Man, right? But he got the run with Hogan for the title, so that is basically the same. No,
he did get the main event payoff.
But that's what I'm saying. That's basically this. At that point in time, you knew Hogan was the
Bruce the Bar Beefcake got that rub as well.
Yeah, he was the cow that everybody was kind of, or the bull that everybody was kind of attached to and riding him all the way through. So you kind of knew as a heel that you weren't ever gonna beat him. But if you got that title picture main event, especially those house show runs with him, you knew you were at the top. Like, it didn't even matter if you won a title. It was just you being in that same ring as him and being marquee on the name of the marquee with him. I think that was like the upper echelon when it came to being a heel. If you're a babyface, you were never going to beat him most likely either. So your best thing would have been you having tag team matches with him at the main event and some of these house shows.
I agree with what you're saying. Let's cut the crap though. Crush has never ever recovered the minute he got destroyed by Doink. Two Doinks. Remember that WrestleMania 9 review we did? That's on your channel still. I think still on your channel.
I think they might have blocked it. Who knows? They blocked
it. That match caused me nightmares still. But to be fair, like Crush never recovered after he lost the Doink. That's the end of the topic.
Well, Vince says Vince had a hard on for Crush and Atom Bomb.
Chronic. The WWE tag team Chronic.
Chronic. Chronic. Wow. Crush was over, Eric. According to my brother Michael, Crush was over. I don't really think it ever was, but you know.
He didn't. Let's look at the facts. He was in Demolition, didn't go well. He was at Corona Crush, didn't do anything. Nope. Came back in Nation of Domination. Do you remember that with Clarence Mason in '96? That was a disaster. I was a massive fan of Crush. I thought he was quite good on the mic. I thought his promos weren't bad, but never really quite made it to level.
I think he only lasted as long as he did because he was friends with the Undertaker. I think Undertaker was a Crush guy, so maybe that's why really the only reason he lasted there was so many different gimmicks that long.
BSK, so he was in the Bone Street crew then.
Yep. Exactly. So he probably would have. If he would have stayed longer, he probably would have been in the Ministry of Darkness. Most likely, he probably would have been in that group, and he would still had a job in WWE. But going back to this topic, wrapping a bow on this one. I don't think they would have been. Yeah, I think it would have taken them way longer, and I think only maybe one of the two might have cracked that next level and been a main eventer. And I don't think it would have been a main eventer for as long as either of these guys were, because remember, HBK's been a main eventer so long, so is Bret Hart. I think one of them would have cracked that level, but I don't think he would have had that staying power.
Can you imagine though, if this was the thing and there was no in the steroid trial and we carried on in that whole mantra, you'd be having Omos as world champion now. I'm going to go and run outside this room now. That's scaring me. Omos would be your world champion now.
Yes. Oh, he would. I mean, pretty much. Omos would be your
world champion. It'd be Omos as Andre the Giant, wouldn't it? That's
because if you look at it now, Omos being there, he would have eventually gotten to that point.
Giant Gonzalez. He would have beat the Undertaker. They'd have put the Undertaker back for one match, and Undertaker would have laid down and probably because you
saw nowadays where Omos was headed, kind of when he had a match against Bobby Lashley, at WrestleMania. Yeah. So you knew that it was kind of heading there, that he was eventually going to be a guy Vince wanted to put the title on because he's so huge. We saw Great Khali as a champion. I mean, these are the guys that Vince likes because they're just larger than life. They're huge individuals, but they have no skill whatsoever in the ring, and they're very, very lethargic and kind of awkward out there.
They're just spectacles, aren't they? They're just people. When you're at the airport, you see somebody. It's like, what does that person do? They're huge. It's just sort of they stand out, don't they? Like a bit like freak shows more than anything, really.
Yeah, exactly. We got my guy Tyler in the chat. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate you for joining us, man. Yeah, the Rasslin Report is the YouTube channel Radar for Wrestling. We do a weekly show. Me and Jonesy Chats Wrestling. Make sure you check him out. Rasslin Report. Thanks for joining us, bro. I appreciate it, man. Eric says he lost the Doink. We're still on the Crush stuff. Basically, yeah.
We started a war.
Eric said they did drop the ball. We should have still have wrestlers playing.
Doink was a great character. Matt Bourne was an absolutely incredible Doink. Like so dark, and the portrayal. If that was done in a modern day time, particularly if it's done now, I think it would work with a more older audience. So
I think, and it could have been a running joke that we still have so many people playing Doink to this time, like to this year. I think it could have been a real funny gag if we would have had that many different Doinks. Martin Carrillo in the chat. Thank you, Martin, for joining us. I appreciate it, man. Eric's a big dark Doink guy. The first Doink he was, because that was more my cousin Eric's age. Like he was in that age group for that, so he really, really enjoyed that one. He has really good memories about dark Doink. But yeah, Matt Bourne was awesome. The presentation in the beginning was great.
Definitely.
Martin says, can any of you both see half or majority of AEW fans watching WWE also? I think majority of AEW people are WWE fans or guys who are just like, those guys are like, oh, WWE sucks, man. I hate it. And then they just go watch AEW. I think that's kind of what the grouping is. But I think majority of AEW fans watch both products. Like me and you, we watch, for the most part, we watch both products. I think most AEW fans are also WWE fans as well. But they complain a lot more of WWE than they do AEW.
I think if you're a fan, you'll put up with it. This is the real chance of WWE. When they get the bigger shows like the Survivor Series, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania, this is the point to get the non-wrestling fans in that watch only part-time in to watch the whole show. But I think you kind of watch both. Both of them must watch at the moment at this point, really.
Definitely, yeah. Both are must watch, especially after Triple H taking over. But for me, in terms, I don't see a beef between the two companies, or why people should complain, beef with each other for being, oh, I'm a WWE guy, AEW guy. It doesn't really matter. It's like nonsensical. But for me, I think people should call out AEW more for some of the stuff they do. It doesn't really work that well. If it would happen in WWE, it'd be the end of the world. I just think there's that separation there. People need to start calling out AEW more, and we're gonna get into some of that stuff by the end of this stream. They got to call them out more because they be doing some stuff that, if WWE did, everything would come crashing, burning down.
Yeah, fair point.
Next thing, Clash of Castle news. What you got at Clash of the Castle, Jones?
Yeah, so interesting. So what we got is obviously with the Clash of Castle, is this just a check of, is this the ticket sales you want or ticket information, or is this generally the overall view of discussion of where the show is at this point?
Both. Just give me the ticket sales first, and then give me the overview.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so obviously the tickets at the moment, this is obviously the first stadium show in the UK since 1992.
Yep.
Apparently there's 63,803 tickets out at the moment, and the capacity is 71,810. So at the moment, apparently they've sold 45,000 seats at this point, but they're panicking. I got a seat this week. I had my ticket already. I was able to move from up in the stands to kind of not near ringside, but very near ringside at like 40 quid more. So at the moment they've had to cut all the prices just to get the place to sell out.
So you upgraded your seat and you sold the other one that you had?
Yeah. So what I did is my original seat was like £65, and we was up sort of right in the rafters, so to speak. And in the end, I just ended up getting a trade. I was able to trade that one in, and I paid like another 40 quid. So my ticket now is like £113.
It's not bad, yeah.
And we're really near. We're like sort of 2 away from the ring, basically. Like two sections away from the ring. But they've been having that. The problem is what they've had is when the original tickets went out, they're very, very expensive. So people are panicking because they thought the pay-per-view would buy up. So what everyone's doing at the moment is they're trying to get their tickets back in to try and get a better seat. So people paid 400 quid, $400 for a seat. They're finding seats at 250 that are far nearer. So this has caused massive issues to Clash of Castle. And I think this then has meant that WWE are panicking. They want to try and sell this show out, which is why they've given away so many comps as well. So they're not obviously, but to me, they're still going to make a lot of money. Cardiff paid them for this pay-per-view, which is why they've gone to Cardiff, not London. And in terms of where the show's at, I think this looks to be a really, really good pay-per-view. We got one more match again this week on SmackDown, which was the Intercontinental title match. We're a few more weeks away from the actual, probably the pay-per-view now. Are we going to see any other matches? Like, to me, there's big rumors today going around. The Usos apparently won't be on the show. They apparently can't get in because of the DUI. I don't know if that's true. I thought they've been on house shows before. I don't know what's your thoughts of that.
Yeah, that doesn't make much sense to me. That one. I think they've been on house shows over there, and they have to find a workaround for that because they can't have the Usos not be there and then Roman, because then that ruins the whole storyline.
That's the thing. Like the fact they weren't able to get into Canada. For me, I'm sure they can get in there. The Canadian law must be slightly different to the UK law, but if they're not on the pay-per-view, that would kind of fit why we haven't got a tag team title match at this point, going into 2 weeks into the pay-per-view. If that makes sense.
It does, but it also, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, but most likely it's because they don't have anybody worth facing. Honestly, that's what I think the case is right there. But it would have seriously surprised me if they can't get into the country because of that. Because it's only one of them that has a DUI, right? So that means
it's Jay, I think. Jay for the
it's Jimmy. No,
Jimmy. Sorry, it's one of them for drink driving. Isn't it drink
Jimmy,
driving?
Naomi's husband is the one that has Jimmy. Yeah. So Jay could actually be there. So if we see Jay by himself, you know what the story is. Anything else you got on Clash of the Castle?
No, nothing else. We're hoping to get some more matches soon. But as soon as I hear some matches, obviously you'll hear it first on the Rasslin Report. If you don't hear yourself on Twitter,
exactly. They shot themselves in the foot by bringing those prices. I guess they assumed that the thing was gonna be such a fever pitch for people to.
They rip people off.
Yeah, they would have paid. People would have paid anything, but I guess people were smarter and more, sensible with their money. They were like, all right, maybe the tickets will get lower as time goes on. Yeah,
they were trying to basically broadcast them as WrestleMania tickets in the Attitude Era, like where every seat is a hot seat, and the seats were just ridiculous. But it's good for me as a fan. Obviously, the prices have gone down. I was able to get a better seat, so I'm happy, man. I'm happy with my seat I got. In the end.
That's a good deal for you, especially you only pay that much more than what you paid before, and you're further up. Martin has an interesting question here. Should AEW stop taking shots at WWE, or is it just Punk too obsessed with referencing them? I think they should definitely stop. I think it's a terrible look for them to continuously do it over and over again as many times as they have in almost 4 years of existence. Punk is just obsessed with it. He is still salty after everything that happened. He will not let it go. He's one of those kind of guys who's just going to keep it in his craw, and he's just not going to let things go. And he's going to keep doing it over and over and over again. But AEW, generally speaking, it's mostly just like WWE guys that tend to do it. But some of their like original AEW talent who hasn't never been shouldn't do it either. I think none of them should continuously do it. I think it's a bad look because the other company doesn't reference you whatsoever for the most part. You shouldn't really reference in them either.
I agree. I think it's not the best look in all honesty.
Yeah, it's not good for them to be doing that over and over again. Martin says, "Hey Jonesy, why don't you do a vlog about Cast of the Casual Show maybe?"
Maybe we're gonna do a live review after, aren't we? We're gonna catch up. We'll do a live wrestling report.
Yeah,
after.
we'll do the wrestling report immediately as soon as you get back to the hotel. We'll jump on and we'll do it like that because the time difference works in our favor for that. Yeah. So we're gonna do that. So make sure you tune into that week's wrestling report because it's gonna be pretty much right after Cast of the Casual's over. So it kind of be a review, but also a wrestling report regular episode as well.
Yeah, cool.
Martin's on to say, if both world titles are pending to be split, maybe the tag titles also or not. I think they should got to axe one of the titles, like, and just have one tag.
Yeah, you just need one tag title, one Intercontinental title. They've only got one, obviously, one world title, or maybe two. We've got one world title at the moment, maybe, or no, we've got the champion with two, but maybe have like it depends on how often you want the belts to be defending the depth roster, as we said earlier. But yeah, I'd be a fan of just one tag team titles, and with what we said earlier with the NXT wrestlers tag teams being able to come up and challenge as well.
Yeah, because you lack the depth to have two brand titles for the tag team division. So just have one world tag team champions that go from show to show and feud there because you don't have the depth for it. That's Clash of Castle. Let's get into some AEW news. Kenny Omega return. He returned part of the trio tournament with the Young Bucks, right? So he's back.
Yep. Yeah, as we said last week. So Kenny Omega obviously come back. Looked really, really good. Great to see him back here. The reaction he got was really, really good.
Yep.
For me, they're doing some sort of angle where Kenny isn't fully recovered. So obviously he's playing to the camera that he's not fully fit. As the weeks go on, we expect him to get better and better. I think that's the way they're playing off. But I thought it was just great to see him back, really. I think he's a massive addition. The fans knew he was coming. And I was just really happy to see him back. What were your thoughts on the match and his comeback?
Yeah, I mean, Kenny Omega's, arguably top wrestler in the world. Has been for years. I'm more of an AJ guy, but whatever. He's come back. It's a trio thing. It's an easy way for him to kind of get back into the swing of things. Obviously he's with his boys, the Young Bucks. I'm not a huge fan of the trio title because another title you got to add to the show. They have a lot going on. It feels like that's why the tag team titles have been relegated to Rampage. That's where we see Swerve and Our Glory for the most part. So I think it's cool. Who do you think is going to win this trio tournament?
I think you go with the Young Bucks and Kenny. Who else is there, to be fair? There's a few other teams, but this is designed for them, really, solely.
I feel like the titles, were made for either them or Adam Cole and Red Dragon. So I feel like that's what was made for, honestly. Martin goes, if they don't split the titles by Survivor Series, then where is the brand versus brand champions match at? We talked about it earlier, Martin. I think they may do just them versus themselves because they don't have anybody else. Or they may do like every tag team from Raw, every tag team from SmackDown, and just have them in it as well. Because I don't think they have anything. Unless they split those titles, They got nothing whatsoever.
No, of course they don't. They've got this chance to build it, haven't they? They've got a couple of months now to October. I think it's October, November, isn't it? The show. They've got 2 or 3 months now to try and build something. So let's see what they do.
Yeah, exactly. Next thing, MJF return and possible feud. What you got on MJF coming back?
Yeah, so MJF is due back imminently. We kind of alluded to this last week. Expect him back. I'm going to put that out there. I said last week I'll do this. I'll stick with this as well. I expect him back at the pay-per-view. Look for him to start a feud with CM Punk. I think that's the route they're going to go down. And I think for me, he's going to come in at the top. And controversially, this is crazy. I don't know how this is going to work, but I'm going to say this. It's not something I've been told, but it's something I believe. I think CM Punk's going to be heel in the feud, and I think MJF is going to go babyface. That's the route I think they're going to go down, which is going to be different, so to speak.
Well, it makes sense because he's going to be extremely against AEW MJF when he comes back because he cut the promo he cut that everybody kind of forgot about because they never capitalized on it. That makes total sense. Martin goes on to say, Kenny Omega is great, but bringing him back at 100%, I don't agree. They should have waited, in my opinion. Unless this is part of storyline reasons.
They were desperate for this trio's titles. This was a big silent dance.
They're just bringing him back before he's in completely good again.
Yeah, the trouble is they've also got MJF for the world title, so they can't have Kenny and MJF both looking at the world title at the moment. But I agree. I think it sort of maybe was a throwaway, but it gives that title an instant lift, doesn't it? The trio's title. So he's not only got the Young Bucks, one of the best tag teams in the world. You've got Kenny Omega, one of the best wrestlers in the world. That trio's title feels important straight away, just on them three holding it.
It does, but then you run into the thing is like who takes it from them and who wins it later on. How do you keep it relevant?
They worry about that later.
Yeah,
it'll
exactly.
be Red Dragon probably is what you said. I agree with that. The Red Dragon versus the Omega and Young Bucks feud. I think that's probably the route to go down long term.
That's probably what it is. Now MJF hopefully comes back soon. Hopefully they reference the promos from before. A lot of that because they dropped the ball heavily on that.
I think what they're doing is I think CM Punk, based on I know this past week he shooted on. I think our next topic will be that he shooted obviously on Adam Page, Hammond Page. For me, I think CM Punk in the background is slowly turning heel. Like fans are going to get kind of annoyed with him. Wouldn't surprise me if Tony Khan is brought into this in some capacity, and MJF is a bit like a Stone Cold Steve Austin, having to trying to be odds against him with Tony Khan, and that somewhere leads that CM Punk does Tony Khan's work in some capacity. That's the route I think I'd go down if I was booking it.
It's interesting to see MJF if he can cut promos as good as he cuts them without the snarkiness and the heel factor.
I don't know if he can. He's the greatest heel, but for me, it's unless they're both heel. But for me, MJF as a babyface, we've never seen it. I'd be up for seeing it. Something a bit different, really.
It would be. Now, the final topic we're going to cover is a CM Punk drama in AEW. The man cannot seem to stay happy in any wrestling organization he's in. So we have rumors reported that he was in a no-show Dynamite. He had issues with the promo with Adam Page and the whole storyline with Adam Page. He obviously took shots at Jon Moxley. You know, obviously shoot work promo he did with Jon Moxley, talking about he's always seems to be the third best person in the stable, talking about referencing the Shield and obviously Blackpool Combat Club. What do you got for us on the CM Punk drama? Is there any legitimacy to any of this? And is it just CM Punk being CM Punk?
I think it's CM Punk being CM Punk. Clear some sort of falling out and bad blood between Hammond Page and CM Punk. This wasn't meant to happen. He went into business for himself. And it just looked really amateur for me. Like you're calling out a Hammond Adam Page, like you're going to set up some sort of feud or something. Hammond Page didn't come out, so it totally buried all the hard work for Hammond Page has done. Former world champion that you've thrown in the bin there, and it did CM Punk no favors really. Let's look at like this. CM Punk's been back 1 year now. This is the most exciting we've been about somebody coming back, and already it feels flat to me. Like that buzz has gone, which I don't know what's gone wrong. Clearly, Tony Khan's got all these egos in AEW that he's signed, and he can't please them. And it's one of these dangers where you've got CM Punk not threatening not to come to work and stuff. It can be really, really dangerous to me. I don't know what they're going to do. If Tony Khan's smart, if you can get them in a room, get them sat down together, talking, hash out the differences. This could be a money feud down the line, though, if they play up to the cameras and do that whole "is this a work, is this a shoot" type of angle. I'd like to see that down the line. Obviously, you got MJF, CM Punk first, but what's to stop CM Punk and Hammond Page shooting like this in the future and actually make money out of it for both?
Yeah, I mean, and like you talk about all the egos he brought in. The biggest one being CM Punk. I mean, that's the biggest one by far. That's the one he's gonna have the most trouble trying to please. Is gonna be CM Punk, as we see from this drama going on with CM Punk. But yeah, I mean, it's always better to go kind of like that shoot work style. I think it's always more interesting because like fans get a kick out of it because they never know what's real, what's not. And they reference stuff that we heard online, all that stuff like that. But it's CM Punk being CM Punk. I mean, it just is what it is. I mean, it's tough it's like one of those guys you're just tough to make happy at all times. He's always gonna have an issue with something, and that's what we're seeing here. And it's just it's Tony Khan's run. He's never ran a wrestling company before. He's just a fan, he's just a mega fan for wrestling. So he doesn't really know he doesn't know the what comes with it, the baggage, the ego, because everybody thinks, they should be the top guy. That's the problem. It's different when you're on a team, a regular sports team, and not everybody thinks you're gonna be the top guy. And this thing, it's entertainment, so everybody thinks they're the top guy.
I agree. I remember one of the early episodes we did a Rasslin Report last year when just before CM Punk went to AEW. Do you remember there was that big story that we broke that had WWE were offered CM Punk back basically, and Fox were going to pay some of the wages, and there was just all this negativity. This is exactly the reason why WWE probably didn't get CM Punk. This type of stuff, the animosity that's been created. It's just a real shame, really. Hopefully, he can sort it out, and hopefully, we get the CM Punk that he's a great talker, he's a fantastic wrestler, but being bitter, it's a Bret Hart thing. It's like Bret Hart sort of the later days of Bret Hart, isn't it? That's what it kind of feels like to me a little bit. He just doesn't care anymore.
Yeah, it really doesn't. Real quick, I just want to touch this. What are you guys' thoughts on Swerve and Our Glorious Reign? It feels like they're directionlessness. They need to have a feud for them at All Out, or one that could bring intrigue. The problem is they've been relegated after winning those titles to Rampage, and that's the problem. They haven't been showcased on Dynamite. They're like Rampage's tag team champions. It's like if there was a brand split, and then that championship was for Rampage because they're only there, and it's not a good look because people see Rampage lesser than, and obviously, de facto see Swerve and Our Glory as a lesser reign of a champion.
I agree. I think the thing with it is the Ring of Honor tag team titles are more important, which is just unbelievable.
Because FTR is holding them.
It's FTR as well. But with this, obviously, I think the thing with it, Keith Lee's in a better spot than he was in WWE, main roster. But it's not the best, really. I think they've just thrown these two together for the sake of it, really, which is a shame. For me, Keith Lee's best work is a singles wrestler. Swerve is a great wrestler. I just think for me, I don't think these are long-term champions. I can't see them with a belt for months. I don't think they're going to have some stellar run now.
Who knows? In the back of both of their minds, they could be thinking, "Oh man, we should have not signed because we could be back in WWE with Triple H, and he could be having us both do big things." Martin goes on to say what you say, but when a report was stated about WWE's thoughts on CM Punk return, let it be their problem was quite understated at that time. But it looks like we are seeing it. Yeah, you just said it, Jonesy. I mean, it's probably more problems than they wanted to deal with. It's a headache that they didn't want to deal with, and that just it is what it is. It's the guy. At some point you can't always blame creative or the company. At some point the talent, the guy has to take the responsibility.
I agree. Like, he's there to obviously do a job. The fact that he's doing a Brock Lesnar saying, I'm not going to come to work, and he's your champion, dangerous, really dangerous doing that. That's almost like the War at SummerSlam 91 saying, I'm not going to go out and do the match. I'll hold you up for money and stuff. It's the same type of thing, really.
Yeah. Michael goes on to say CM Punk is having an MJ, Michael Jordan Wizards type comeback. We said that when he first came back, when we did a review of that show, that Dynamite, when he first did his comeback, and Michael got a lot of heat for that one, for saying that. It's funny. Martin Carew goes on to say, I don't understand why he doesn't go to a higher up and let them know about his displeasure. He just wants to find a solution by his way. Triple H cut a promo against him in WWE, and I saw it recently on Instagram. It's just he wants to be the guy, and he thinks that, but he wants to go about it through the back door, not really just go up to somebody and straight up tell him, look, I'm the guy. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
I've got one last thing as well. I'll tell you another thing I think that's happened that's made this situation much more acrimonious. So Colt Cabana, CM Punk don't have a great relationship.
Yep.
Colt Cabana was going to be released. Tony Khan gave him a contract. CM Punk obviously wasn't pleased. That's kind of that's stating the obvious, but to me, that's what I think's gone down.
Yeah, that makes sense. It seems like a kind of a
because they were like really, really close.
And then the whole lawsuit thing happened. Yeah, the whole lawsuit thing happened. They owed money to each other, everything like that. That's kind of a petty reason to be upset, but it is what it is. Martin Curry goes on to say, since Young Bucks and Omega will maybe be the trios champion, the tag titles will be an afterthought. Oh, so you think? So you say tag team titles will fall off even cliff even more because these trios take the spotlight? Yeah.
I think that's great analysis and really good point. It wouldn't surprise me. Like Kenny Omega and Young Bucks are much more important than Swerve and Lee, unfortunately.
At this point, yeah, definitely. And they won't be featured. They'll be featured on Dynamite, not Rampage. Yeah. That's the big difference, too, as well. Not only do you have a former world champion, former tag team champions, megastars as your trio's title holder, but on top of that, they'll be featured on the main show rather than being featured on the secondary show.
I agree.
Yeah, that's the problem. So that's the CM Punk drama. No shock for me for the CM Punk drama there. It doesn't surprise me whatsoever. It is what it is. They got themselves into the mess. They can kind of figure it out on their own. Hopefully they do, and hopefully everything works out. Hopefully everybody's prosperous. We get great matches, great events, great feuds, great pay-per-views. But guys, that is the Rasslin Report. Those are our topics for this week. Appreciate everybody that joined us, all the awesome comments, questions, everything you guys brought up in the chat. Appreciate you guys. Much love to you guys for checking out the stream. Once again, make sure you drop a like on this one. Make sure you sub to the channel. If you haven't already subbed, most of you guys already are sub. Appreciate you guys for tuning in once again to another episode of the Rasslin Report. Next week, we should be back on a regular schedule Sunday time, 4:30 Eastern, 4 o'clock Eastern. 11 o'clock in the morning Eastern and 4 o'clock UK. Sorry, I get confused with the time zones every once in a while. Jonesy, any last words for everybody?
No, thank you all for the comments. Thank you all for watching. It's been a great episode again this week. I'm sure it's going to get even more crazy next week. I keep saying that, but looking forward to the next episode. Thank you for having me again. It's been a great fun.
The best thing about it is the unpredictability that we got going on right now in professional wrestling. That's the best thing. Keep it that way for sure. Make sure tomorrow I'm dropping a video. It's going to be set up probably for noon tomorrow. Make sure you check it out. It's a banger. Let me know what you guys think of the new video when it drops tomorrow. I got some changes, some new little directions I'm taking. Thank you guys for joining us. Make sure you check out the video tomorrow, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode of the Rasslin Report.